Since the turn of the century, more than 900,000 people in the United States have died from a drug overdose. An epidemic of addiction, despair, and death. But this wasn't a random plague, and it was no accident. This crisis was engineered in corporate boardrooms and sold to us in doctors' offices. It was a crisis built on a lie, marketed by some of the most trusted companies in America. So, how do we get here? How did the institutions we believed were there to heal us become the real drug dealers? To understand the sheer scale of this catastrophe, you have to understand who it claimed. These aren't just statistics. They're a generation. They were our sons and daughters, mothers and fathers. People like Susan, a retired schoolteacher from Ohio. He was the light of our lives, always laughing. He played shortstop for his high school team, loved fishing with his dad. He was just a great kid. When he was 17, he had a bad sports injury, a torn rotator cuff. The doctor was very reassuring. He said, "We have something new. It's a wonder drug for pain. It's called OxyContin, and the best part is, it's not addictive." That's what he said. Not addictive. That single promise, repeated by thousands of doctors to millions of patients, was the spark that lit the fuse of the opioid crisis. For Susan's son, one prescription for a sports injury turned into a dependency he couldn't escape. When the prescriptions ran out, the addiction didn't, like hundreds of thousands of others. He eventually turned to heroin and then illicit fentanyl to quiet a craving that started in a doctor's office. He was 24 when his mother found him. They tell you it's a choice. But the choice was made for him the day he was told that lie, the company that made that pill. They didn't just take my son, they took everything. Susan's story is tragically common. It's a tragedy that is played out in nearly every community across the nation. In 2023 alone, there were over 105,000 drug overdose deaths, and opioids were involved in nearly 80,000 of them. This wasn't a failure of willpower. It was the calculated result of a criminal enterprise disguised as healthcare. So how did they get away with it for so long? Just follow the money. And the money trail leads back to a handful of companies, with one name at the very center of the storm: Purdue Pharma, owned by the secretive and powerful Sackler family. In 1996, Purdue launched OxyContin with one of the most aggressive marketing campaigns in pharmaceutical history. They armed a legion of sales reps with misleading data and a simple, powerful, and fraudulent message. The risk of addiction to OxyContin was less than 1%. They targeted doctors in small towns, sponsored medical conferences, and funded so-called patient advocacy groups that were little more than front organizations. They created a market where one didn't exist, pushing powerful narcotics for everything from back pain to arthritis. They convinced the medical establishment that pain itself was a vital sign that needed to be eliminated at any cost. But it wasn't just Purdue. The playbook they wrote was copied across the industry. In 2009, Pfizer paid a staggering $2.3 billion settlement for illegally promoting several drugs, including the painkiller Bextra, and for paying kickbacks to compliant doctors. In 2012, GlaxoSmithKline was hit with a $3 billion fine for unlawfully promoting its own drugs and withholding crucial safety data. Johnson & Johnson, a company built on an image of family-friendly care, paid over $2.2 billion in 2013 for improperly marketing its antipsychotic drug, Risperidol, to vulnerable populations. The list goes on. Abbott, Eli Lilly, Teva. Time and again, these corporate giants were caught, fined billions, and then simply went back to business as usual. The fines, as massive as they sound, just became another cost of doing business. The profits were just too good to pass up. While the death toll climbed, the profits soared into the tens of billions. The government is now escalating its response. In a landmark shift, federal prosecutors have begun charging pharmaceutical distributor executives with felony drug trafficking, using the same laws designed to take down street-level cartels. According to the Department of Justice, these executives knowingly supplied pill mill pharmacies and even coached them on how to evade law enforcement. The line between the boardroom and the back alley had completely disappeared. For decades, the families of the victims fought for accountability. They protested outside the museums and universities that bore the Sackler family name, a name purchased with blood money. Finally, the legal system started to catch up. Purdue Pharma, facing thousands of lawsuits, filed for bankruptcy in 2019. What followed was a years-long legal battle. Initially, the Sacklers offered billions in exchange for a blanket shield against any future lawsuits, a move the Supreme Court ultimately rejected. Finally, in late 2025, a new settlement was approved. Purdue Pharma would be dissolved and reformed as a public benefit company named Noah Pharma. The Sackler family was forced to give up ownership, would be barred from the opioid business globally, and agreed to pay up to $7 billion. This was part of a broader wave of settlements against drug makers and distributors totaling around $50 billion. But for the victims, what does this justice look like? Out of the billions, about $850 million is set aside for individual victims. Is that the price of a life, of a family shattered, of a community hollowed out? New York's Attorney General Letitia James put it plainly, for decades, the Sacklers ran Purdue with one goal in mind: maximizing profits for their family no matter the cost. And while the Sacklers will pay billions, much of their vast fortune, once estimated at over $10 billion, remains intact, sheltered long before the final judgments came. One feature from a previous settlement proposal was tellingly absent from the final deal: a requirement for the Sacklers to sit and listen to the stories of the families their company destroyed. The opioid crisis stands as a monument to corporate greed. It reveals a chilling truth: that a company can knowingly market a product that kills people, reap billions in profits, get caught, pay a fine, and continue to operate. The settlements provide some financial restitution, but they can never bring back the hundreds of thousands of people who have been lost. The story isn't over. The fight continues in courtrooms and in communities still grappling with the fallout. The real drug dealers weren't lurking in the shadows. They were sitting in corporate boardrooms, their names etched on the sides of our most prestigious institutions. And the most important question remains: have we truly done enough to ensure this can never, ever happen again? Exposing these criminal practices is the first step, but the fight for true accountability is far from over. These stories need to be told. If you believe this kind of investigative content is important, subscribe to our channel and watch our next documentary on the hidden dangers in our food supply. Your support helps us continue to uncover the truth.